Welcome to the Breakfast Leadership Show, where we interview global thought leaders on business, leadership, and life. Here's your host, keynote speaker, best-selling author, and chief burnout officer of the Breakfast Leadership Network, Michael Levitt.
Welcome back. I've got Amanda Butler Schley on the line. Amanda, how are you?
I'm doing great, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Really looking forward to this very important conversation for entrepreneurs and business owners to hear. So why don't you share a little bit about you and the work you do, and then we'll dive into the conversation.
Sure. I am the owner of the Business Law Group, a law firm here in New Orleans that represents entrepreneurs and growing businesses, mainly in the hospitality industry, but also more broadly in other industry sectors as well. So I'm providing advice to those clients that are in a growth phase or in a growth stage, and they are essentially wanting to make sure that where they might not have always done things by the book previously, the business has some real value and has showed some real potential, and they're wanting to dot their I's and cross their T's and make sure that, they really don't have any big legal problems that they need to worry about. And in that process, we often find that there are quite a few. And we either start at, in a proactive capability, coming in and looking at what they've done. There is no, house on fire situation. There's the other situation where there is something that has happened. There's a lawsuit that's occurred. They've been sued by an employee. They've gotten a cease and desist from somebody else to not use their business name any longer. Something has caused a panic, and we need to kind of resolve the situation and solve it going forward. And that kind of gives a new perspective to those business owners who start to understand, I really do need to be making decisions that are more informed and, making sure that I'm consulting with legal counsel on a more regular basis. So a general counsel role is not, that's not something most companies can afford up to a certain size. I'm representing as an outsourced general counsel for those companies. Once they get past a $10 million or $20 million revenue point, I'm probably not their person. They really do need full-time general counsel in-house. But until we get there, until the money is there, outsourced counsel makes a lot of sense. And it actually can continue to make a lot of sense even through having a general counsel on board, because oftentimes that general counsel just will not have the expertise that it needs to do all of the things it needs to do.
That's important information. And you mentioned you have a focus on hospitality. I'm guessing over the last couple of years, you've seen the extremes where, the hospitality industry, unfortunately, was hit pretty hard because of the pandemic. And then once restrictions started to lift, I think everybody on the planet and maybe a handful of species from other planets all wanted to travel. And it just turned, into zaniness as far as booking resorts and going to different places and the industry and hiring and all of that. So I'm guessing you saw a lot of your clients have to navigate through the extremes over these last few years.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we went from the place of having to fire hundreds of employees to a place of not being able to hire back employees, a place where additional capital was needed in order to keep these companies going, and figuring out how we were going to get that capital infusion to a place where there is literally so much money out there coming in. Because of either idle loans, economic injury, disaster loans, or PPP loans, and just this overabundance of capital. So it has been a rough 3 years for hospitality. I would say every client, to my knowledge, if they made it through it, they are experiencing some really great they're in a good place right now, except to the extent that the workforce has shrunk. that's definitely still a common problem they're all having.
Yeah, there's tons of reasons for that, where the baby boomer generation that were close to retirement said, close enough, let's retire. And others where people were, wanting to do, different work. And as I tell people in the work that I do with resources and the Great Resignation and quiet quitting and all of that, and burnout especially, is we're in this time where things are still moving and it hasn't set, although life always moves, so it wouldn't necessarily just stop. But eventually we're going to get to that stage where my hope is anyway, and this is my anticipation anyway, is people that want to work in certain industries are going to gravitate to them, and those roles will be filled. But it's going to take some time, because I think a lot of people, especially during the pandemic and afterwards, they are reflecting and going, I want to try something else. And sometimes, and I've done this myself, I've gone into different careers and thought, I would really like to do this. And I get into it and I go, actually, no, I don't. Right. And go back into, the field that I came from, or a hybrid type of role that, offered me the things that I was comfortable doing, but still stretched me into doing some other things. And, with hospitality, is one industry, that's definitely one where, we're seeing some shifts in things and turning, staying at hotels from, it's staying at a hotel, but now you're seeing a lot more, even the small independent ones are focusing more on an experience instead of just, here's a hotel room with the, typical things, breakfast starts at 6:30 kind of thing. No, they're looking at different things to make it an experience. So that's, bringing in different type of people to provide those experiences, and partnerships with other organizations to say, we're going to partner with this organization and offer this type of experience, which brings legal ramifications into things. If, a guest gets hurt on the shuttle bus over to the amusement park or something like that, who owns the bus? What are they doing? There's all these, not to get into the weeds of legalities, but all these little things that people wouldn't necessarily think of when they say, I'm going to partner with this organization. Well, you need to make sure that those legal matters are both discovered and ironed out beforehand.
It's so true. I had a client contact me last week, and she's she owns the biggest, most well-known king cake brand here. I don't know if you've had a Mardi Gras king cake. It's something that's very Louisiana, and we take a lot of pride in it. And they were, quote, partnering with a local brewery who was thinking about doing kind of a king cake style of beer, or a king cake flavored beer for Mardi Gras. And they'd sent over this essentially one-page license agreement that they must have pulled off of, Rocket Lawyer or, Zoom, or who knows where they got it. And I just thought, these are two well-intending people who, even though I have no doubt there's good faith on both sides, this is exactly where all of the problems start. You just cannot be your own lawyer, even though it's very, you think you might be able to. You think, how hard could it be? I can Google my way through this. It's very similar to Google doctoring, probably not best advised. And so at least she had the wherewithal to say, look, I know I really need to talk to my attorney about this. And what was a half-page agreement needed to be, 15 pages. And I hate to be that person that's, over lawyering or appears to be over lawyering a situation. But, the reason that lawyers do that is because we have encountered all of those nightmare situations, and I don't want my client to have a nightmare situation. So as long as we address the nightmare on the front end with the right documentation, we're going to be in a much better situation. And I think entrepreneurs, that is probably their biggest Achilles heel, is they just want to get it done. It doesn't matter, I just want to get this done. Stop prohibiting, stop impeding my progress, And I'm like, I am all for the progress. We're going to get it done, but we're just going to do it. And we're going to make sure that in the event something that we don't foresee right now happens, we're really going to be in fine shape. Now, nothing prevents a lawsuit, right? Anybody can sue you for any reason. Whether or not the claim is sustainable really is going to depend upon those agreements and what you have in writing.
And that's the important thing. I always tell people, and that's entrepreneurs, they want to be, the next billionaire, and they want to do it by tomorrow. And like, it's unless you hit something that completely changes life as we know it to the positive, in all likelihood, you're not going to get there tomorrow. But in the meantime, in order for you to build towards that, have a strong infrastructure in legal and making sure all of your agreements, your business structure, your tax situation, all of those things that are, for many people, mind numbing and boring. And my first career was public accounting, so tax law and all that good stuff. I still feel relief on April 16th, even though I've never been in the industry I haven't been in the industry for decades. There's still that element of relief from working all those tax seasons. But again, I know that if you have a strong foundation, strong infrastructure, everything is legally sound as a base, you're going to be in much better shape when these opportunities come up, because it's going to be a natural extension of what you do. If you're looking for partnerships or joint ventures, or like the situation with your client and partnering up with a brewery, that's great. As a community effort, it brings people together. It's like, wow, we love these cakes. Oh, we love this brewery. Wow, that's the best of both worlds. And everybody's like, that's great. I definitely want to try that. But, again, making sure that everybody's protected, because it's not just protecting your company, but you're protecting the partner as well.
Absolutely. I think the biggest solid I did in that deal was actually for the brewery. And they were the beneficiary of the fact that my client actually said, no, let's go do this the right way. And, you always hope in a transaction that you have one party that has that common sense. But when we are in those pants on fire, house on fire situations, it's because nobody in the deal had the sense or thought, oh, this is something that we can just paper ourselves, or, nothing wrong is going to happen. Nothing bad will happen. And so therefore, there's no need to really worry about any of this. And it's really in those situations where what we're talking about are, they're business killers. I mean, they will put you out of business. I've had a couple of cases like that in my career that were business enders. If this company lost, the business would go under. And so it becomes really critical. You have to put all of your resources at that point into defending yourself, into ensuring that, that there isn't a judgment that is rendered against the company.
And in those types of situations, the business might still go under even if they win. And we've seen that, unfortunately, in this pandemic, not because of necessarily legal matters, but just because of lost business. And even with the loans and all of that, they're not being able to find people to work for them. It creates this dynamic. And again, that's where, having the legal foundings and things lined up, saying, okay, when I need to exit the business, what does that look like? And that's the
key thing. That is the one thing that drives me crazy, is this lack of understanding what your game plan has to be from the beginning, right? We don't start businesses. I mean, some people do, but the idea of starting a business, you need to be realizing that you're going to unlock the true value of that business when you exit, when you sell, when you get to a liquidity event. And we need to have kind of that in our mind as we've developed something that's worth value. And we need to do it with every step. I always say, when you go to sell a business, the due diligence that's involved in selling a large business is really intense. The buyer is coming in with a team of people, and they're turning over every last stone of what you have done to uncover what are the liabilities here that we could be buying. They don't want to buy one big bucket of liability. They want to make sure that what they're buying is in fact a consistent revenue generator. And, I often describe that process as kind of like a gynecological exam of your business. It's really invasive. It's unpleasant. And if you haven't done things in the right way, it is a very uncomfortable experience, and could basically end just as quickly as it started if a few things are uncovered that become deal killers. Did you forget to trademark? Did you forget to pay a certain type of tax that, now we know forever you're going to owe that tax because you failed to file? Here in Louisiana, we have this very odd tax called the New Orleans Exhibition Hall Tax Authority. And they have, a percentage of sales tax. And if you haven't been collecting that, well, guess what? You're going to owe it. The revenue department is going to come calling. Maybe it's not today, but at some point. And so, as the buyer uncovers those types of deficiencies or those types of liabilities, whether or not you continue to have a deal, is really to be seen.
It's all important things to focus on. And again, doing the work is really important, and making sure that your infrastructure, and which includes legal, is always there, and trusting a partner like your organization is really important. So in closing,
making sure that it's not your family lawyer. You know what I mean? If I had a dime for every time that somebody told me that, their divorce attorney looked at their commercial lease, guess what? That you did not get the best legal advice on that commercial lease if your divorce lawyer reviewed it for you and said it's fine. Or if your brother-in-law, who is, a criminal attorney, reviewed it. Again, same problem. Like, you need to be seeking legal advice from people who know the type of law that relates to business law, whether that's intellectual property lawyer, business lawyer. I kind of am a all-in-one type shop. I really do commercial real estate. I do franchising. I do commercial leases. And so, I have kind of a wide array. But when we need to niche down to somebody who really is, an expert on X, Y, and Z, we certainly do that. And I send those clients right along, knowing that, look, what you have is a very, very specific problem. But make sure you aren't, doing yourself a disservice by not seeking the appropriate legal advice. Just because you know them and they're a lawyer does not mean that you have legal representation from a qualified business lawyer.
Absolutely. And if things go sideways and you end up losing the case, then that creates family dynamics or friend dynamics that just makes Thanksgiving dinner a little bit more uncomfortable.
For sure.
We've all been there for certain things. So, Amanda, I've loved this conversation. Where can people find out more about you and this amazing work you're doing?
Sure. My website is www.lawgroup.biz. And my email address is abutler@lawgroup.biz. I know you'll have that for them in the show notes. An email is always the best way to get in touch with me, but you can also schedule online by going to the website and setting up a consultation.
I'll definitely have that in the show notes. So, Amanda, thank you again for being you and for all this amazing work you're doing.
Thanks, Michael. Good to talk.
Thanks for listening to the Breakfast Leadership Show, part of the Breakfast Leadership Network. Visit breakfastleadership.com for tips on empowering your business and your life.